Hey guys, lepedaler back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about how Zwift has finally secured their first ever esports world championships. That's a UCI sanction. That is insane. That is brand new news to me. It's been here for a while, but no one's covered it. So I decided, hey, I'm gonna come with some Zwift news for you guys because I know a lot of you guys Zwift during the winter, as do I. So it's very interesting to see how they're gonna be actually having their very first, it's actually not even Zwift's, it's just the world's first ever esports sanctioned UCI World Championships, which is going to be done on a 3D or Zwift map that's very similar to the map that the pros are going to be riding in the 2020 UCI World Championships road race, and that's actually taking place in Switzerland this year. So we're going to look at the UCI cycling esports regulations, and I just want to tell you guys about what the provisions are in terms of equipment, performance specifications, specific regulations, and also some of the penalties that can occur. It's very similar to the UCI real life road race regulations for riders, but if you guys don't know, stick around and I'll actually look into what we know for the actual event. So in this video you get the rules and you'll get the actual event. So without further ado, let's get right into this video, guys. So right now we're looking at the UCI cycling esports regulations, and this is the official document released by the UCI. And you can see for cycling esports platforms. So these are general provisions, which mean, you know, general rule sets. And the one that really sticks out to me is that, you know, it's very straightforward. A lot of these are very similar to what Zwift has for their esports regulations, but one thing I wanted to talk about was, so it basically describes, you know, what is a cycling esports. So a cycling esports platform is a software that we coupled with certain hardware allows, which is smart trainers, allows individuals to participate in cycling races in a virtual environment. The one thing that's important for this too, guys, is that, you know, it's very important that we're going to have real life sanctioned esports, UCI sanctioned esports events. However, you know, we're going to have also events that are going to be UCI sanctioned. However, there's not going to be Comas. Riders are not going to be going to, you know, a stage to actually race. It's actually going to be done from home. So having these regulations put into place is really important because, you know, they're actually starting to develop pro Zwift teams. I know I'm doing this, like, I'm kind of guilty because it seems too surreal, but that is the dawn of a new era for pro cycling. So there are, I won't do the quotations, there are pro teams that are being made for Zwift racing specific, and it's important that we have these rules in place for when these teams compete. They're not always going to be competing on the same platform. Pretty expensive actually, even to get commissaires, which are kind of like the referees in cycling. So having this rules that people have to follow makes competition a lot fair, especially when it's done over line and obviously on a you know, electronic format. So pretty much it's just saying that without prejudice to additional requirements defined in these regulations, the minimum requirements to participate in a cycling esports event are defined by the cycling esports platform provider holding the cycling esports event. Pretty much there's rule sets within each event. Cycling esports platforms are reasonable for taking all responsible steps to ensure that the software used is free from any defects that may interrupt the running of the event, otherwise produce an unfair result. So that's just making sure that everyone has a good internet connection, everyone has everything. It's basically setting the playing field that's fair for everyone. Cycling esports platforms providers shall ensure that their software generates and retains sufficient data obtained from each cycling esports event to allow any commissaires and or officials to proceed to performance verification and ensure that any instances of alleged infringement can be investigated and acted upon. Such data shall be available on demand after each race. So this means that each rider, guys, will have their powered file that's accurately documented, their heart rate, everything, and to make sure that even the equipment they're using isn't sketchy, that the changes in gradient and the resistance on the trainer is accurate and there's no funny business going on. So it's a fair platform that everyone can compete on. So pretty standard stuff, right? And lastly, the cycling esports platform providers must make reasonable endeavors to ensure that their software is compatible with a wide range of equipments which may be used by any riders. It remains the responsibility of the riders to ensure that their equipment is used compatible with the event platform they choose to race on. So basically meaning that, you know, just like they have the UCI weight limit just because not everyone can afford $10,000 bikes. It's basically saying that you know, the event should be accommodating to a bunch of varieties. It shouldn't just be like one specific. For example, say you have a rim brake bike, but all the smart trainers on this event, say it was an in-person event, not one from home, but say you're on a pro team, you have rim brake bikes, but the people setting up the event all have disc brake ready trainers without, and they don't have any different you know, mounts for rim brakes. So your team then can't compete, and everyone else that has disc brakes can, but the people that are organizing the event are not accommodating you. That's not very fair, right? So it just means they have to have both availability. It would be like, for example, say you're used to riding with a riser and they're not providing one, stuff like that. Then again, the team has to be somewhat responsible. So I think it's a mutual thing that teams and also event planners have to come into conjunction with. Now, categories of riders. We're used to Zwift seeing A category, B category, C category, and D category, and I'm pretty sure E. I could be wrong about D, but I'm pretty sure it's A, B, C, D, E. Yeah, E is for everyone. But however, these categories of riders for these UCI sanctioned esports events are going to be based on how it is on the road. So you'll have juniors, right? You'll have U23, you'll have elite. So you'll have different categories. So the participants in races is organized on the basis of the age and gender categories set out in articles 1 point whatever, and that's from the UCI regulations that are very similar to road, track, cyclocross. So this is just basically saying it's not going to be off weight and power. It's actually going to be done by the standard UCI regulations. So race types now. 2 types of cycling esports races may be held. So the first one, like I said at the beginning, is in real life races in which all participants and the necessary equipment are verified by commissaires, which are like refs, and that is at the race location, which is usually at the stage. We did see it at the national championships on Zwift. I think that was in 2018 or 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And the second type of racing is going to be remote races, like I said, in which participants and the necessary equipment are not verified by a commissaire at the race location. So which means if you're riding, say you have a studio that you're riding with the team on your team on Zwift, and you're going to a UCI sanctioned esports event, there's no way that the refs are going to go to each person's, you know, each rider's house or where the team is riding to verify. So that's why a lot of the onus is on the cyclists to make sure, and the teams to make sure that they're compliant with these rules. So now eligibility of participants. So each rider, this is pretty standard even in road, has to have a valid UCI license and a UCI ID code from the National Federation of their country of residence. So for example, I have a Canadian UCI license, and they have to be in accordance with the UCI regulations, which is pretty standard stuff, meaning no funny business, okay? You're following UCI now. Let's go down to commissaires. Commissaires, the UCI may appoint commissaires to officiate in real life cycling events. Just remember, commissaires are like refs. The minimum number of commissaires to be appointed shall be specified in connection with the competition guide and cycling sports events, meaning bigger the competition, more commissaires probably there would need to be. So at the World Championships, if pros are coming, it's going to be a little bit more specific, right? And any commissaire appointed to the officiate during in real life cycling esports events shall have the same powers and responsibilities described in the UCI regulations, meaning a commissaire or ref that is on the road, that you would see it at any Grand Tour or any actual big event, has the same power that they will have in these esports competitions. So the calendar, basically cycling esports events sanctioned by the UCI will be entered on the UCI cycling esports calendar. So it's crazy because they have a World Tour calendar, they have a continental calendar. Esports will have their own UCI calendar that everyone can follow and look towards. Every entity organizing a UCI sanctioned cycling esports event shall conduct the event in strict compliance with UCI constitution and regulations, meaning if you want to have an event, you're going to have to follow the same regulations that the UCI has in every other competition. Now, Another interesting part that I wanted to touch in was equipment, okay? So subject to any appliance competition guide, UCI regulations, bicycles used by cycling esports shall be bicycles defined. So you can't have a different bike. So basically it's very similar. They're taking what they already have and just converting it to esports. So the bikes that are going to be raced have to be UCI regulated in combination with a smart trainer compatible with the cycling sports platform. So meaning that the smart trainers have to be compatible with whatever platform they're using. And I like how they're keeping it brief. We all know this is Zwift. However, you never know in the future, Zwift might die. I don't think so. Zwift is an amazing platform. I've been using it since 2016, so I'm a big supporter. But they're having this written in generalities because you never know. That's a private company, and another company might come, and these rules have to apply to the new event. It'd be interesting if the UCI ever creates their own, but they probably won't because it's actually easy to partner than it is to create and take all the risk and liability. So that's why in this situation, we're going with Zwift, or the UCI is going with Zwift. I don't work for the UCI, or do I? Smart bicycles and or other equipments compatible with cycling esports platforms. So we've seen the release of the Wahoo smart bike. Tax has a smart bike. There's smart bikes that are coming out on the market, so those are allowed too. It's more so anything that's serves as the same function, right? Unless explicitly specified in the competition guide for a race, riders must compete using a power meter or smart trainer. So meaning they have to have some way of recording their power output paired with a cadence sensor and a heart rate monitor. These are pretty accurate tools that any serious racer is gonna have. I myself have all three of those. So, you know, common sense stuff for the average racer, but for someone that's just getting into e-racing, a power meter is something that measures how much power you're putting out in every pedal stroke, every revolution, how much power you're producing. Cadence sensor is actually seeing how many revolutions. So in 1 minute, how many times are you spinning the crank? And that's like the gear part where the pedal is connected. So usually RPMs, depending on climbs, are slower, on flats it's faster, in sprints it's very fast. And heart rate monitors is how many beats per minute you're actually, your heart's actually pumping. So that's that. And riders should be responsible for following any manufacturer's specifications on maintaining the accuracy of the equipment, including but not limited to using up-to-date firmware versions and conducting a spin down, zeroing and or calibration or offset procedure for power meters or smart trainers immediately prior to a race. So basically what they're saying is, you know, these tools are actually being used to record data, right? And over time, what calibration means is that, you know, they have to be reset to be accurate sometimes because for whatever reason, you know, we all know from technology, that can be your phone, your camera, whatever you use, your car, you know, lights start turning on, buttons stop working. So to be accurate, you should restart and reset them so it goes back from having a consistent reading. So say for a long time, you know, your heart rate has been using to record and all of a sudden, you know, you reset it and there's a difference, right? That's because it's been reset back to normal, and whatever error may have happened, because technology is not perfect, it has to be reset to be accurate again. So it's very important because that keeps the playing field fair. Imagine if you had a power meter which records the data and for whatever reason your power meter reads 20 watts higher compared to everyone else. So now you're working less hard and producing more power or equivalent to other riders' power. How's that fair? So resetting it every time prior to a race just levels the playing field, which I totally support because it makes competition a lot more fair. Now, performance verification. Interesting. The organizer of a cycling esports event is required to have a performance verification system. The commissaire may request a verification of any performance. The commissaire may ask riders for any reasonable data which will aid in verification, including but not limited to an outdoor ride data, video, weight verification, live stream calibration, and performance tests. So going back to what we said previously, if these events are taking place not on a live stage where weight can be taken, height can be taken, how are refs gonna make sure that people are not lying? So I could go on to a Zwift race that's a UCI sanction, meaning that the UCI rules have to be followed, and I can say, yeah, I'm 5'7" and I weigh 130 pounds. Or let's say 69 kilograms, which I think is like 153 pounds. And how is that? How do they know that's true? And the only way, the best of the abilities would be get a video. So, you know, stand in front of a door, and the door usually has an average height. So then you can be like, hey buddy, you're basically as tall as the door. How are you 5'7"? And then you can get them to stand on a scale, even though that can be calibrated differently. It's just trying to eliminate as many ways that people can be deceitful. I think that's the goals of the refs. And before the start of any of the, after the conclusion of any race, any equipment used by any rider may be subject to inspection by a ref in order to assert compliance with the regulations, meaning that, you know, if for some reason your heart rate was really low and your power was really high, they can actually take your smart trainer and they could actually get maybe engineers or outsource this to say like what happened. And as crazy as that sounds, guys, there's people, pro riders. I remember this one female, she got banned for having a motor in her cyclocross bike. So, you know, if people are willing to go to the extent of putting motors in their bike, I don't think it's that crazy to think that someone might hire, you know, an engineer or a technician to go in their smart trainer and make the resistance easier, right? So these things are important because, like I said, competition has to be fair, it has to be leveled for everyone. Specific regulations for cycling sports events. This is pretty simple, a statement of the classification level of the competition. So what level is it at, the date and time of the competition, the list of the competition categories, so what age groups, requirement, including equipment, you know, pretty basic stuff for how a competition is actually run. Specific performance verification measures and requirements, meaning, you know, calibration, all that stuff. Prizes and or titles to be awarded, if any. So what's the result if someone wins? Do they get a medal? Do they get point upgrades for other categories to move up? In the event of any conflict between the event platform's regulations and the regulations of the UCI, the regulations of the UCI will prevail. So they're basically saying, you know, if any of these you know, specific regulations for cycling sports events are not done by the people organizing the event, the UCI's rules actually will be used. So that's pretty simple. Data. The organizer of a cycling sport shall be responsible to comply with all relevant data protection laws, meaning that if a rider doesn't want their power files, and again, I don't know if that's broadcast or whatnot, but these might be UCI events. They just have to be conscious of data protection laws, meaning that if a rider, I guess, doesn't want their data to be released to the general public, they don't have to. Not 100% sure. I'm not an esports lawyer yet. Now, the juicy part. This is the juicy part. Specific infringements for cycling esports. So refs shall be responsible for determining any infringements, which is kind of like rule breaking, related to cycling esports, including infringement, which is lying, or bad conduct, or, you know, going slithering away from following the rules of any rule sets specified in any applicable competition guide. So all infringements related to cycling esports are sanctioned as set out in the table of race incidents defined in Article 6.2 in accordance with blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's get right into that, guys. So table of infringements. So ineligible physical equipment, incorrect virtual equipment, so any in-game equipment on the cycling esports platform that is prohibited in connection with the competition guide. So that might be like if you unlock the specific bike in Zwift, like the Tron bike, or something else that gives you an unfair advantage to everyone else. And let's say I create my own competition called lepedaler's weekly race series. And in that race series, I say everyone needs to have this bike, and you choose not to use that bike, then that's an infringement, okay? Ineligible rider, meaning maybe you've been banned and now you're trying to compete. Out of date firmware, you did not update the software on your trainer, or actually in Zwift or whatever esports, I'm pretending as if there's another esports game or platform in Zwift. Out of date software. Other equipment violations, no intent to gain an advantage. Failed performance verification, no intent to gain an advantage. Disconnection lag, unintentional. So that's interesting because I have pretty decent internet, but sometimes my internet goes out. So involuntary disconnected from the cycling esports platform server for more than 1 consecutive minute. Now, that'd be stressful. You know, your dad or mom or sister or whoever unplugs the Wi-Fi, and you're like, no, I'm gonna get an infringement. So I think that's that's unintentional, but that'd be hard to prove. And then voluntary disconnecting from cycling esports. And it's one of those things I think that, you know, once in a blue moon, sure. But then again, if you're going to these events and every single time, you know, you're losing placement in the peloton and my internet goes, that'd be kind of suspicious. So sanction is a refusal to start, elimination, or disqualification. So that's what can happen, is elimination and disqualification. Race disruption. Disrupting and conspiring to disrupt the race to impede the performance of other riders. So I guess, you know, maybe like yelling or screaming or like roasting people, or you know, trying to get in their head while the race is happening. Maybe it may be disrupting. Attempting to remove a rider from an event by disconnecting him or her from the cycling esports platform servers, or by flagging the rider without cause. Damn. Imagine you get off your bike, you take the person, you're like, get out of here. That's it. That's crazy. I have not seen that. See, but it's important because, you know, you have to, when you write these rules, they have to write it with extreme in mind, because we've seen fights in real races, like people have punched people after or thrown water bottles. So you gotta be prepared for extreme cases. Inappropriately distracting other riders. Inappropriately. What? Tampering with or interfering with the normal operations of another rider's equipment. So I guess maybe when there's a pre-race ride, you're taking a screwdriver and trying to mess it up. Tampering with or interfering with the information sent between the platform server or a rider's client software, or between any rider's equipment and platform. I guess they're assuming that you might be a hacker. I don't know. So first violation, which would be refusal to start, elimination, disqualification, you'd be charged 200 francs. I'm pretty sure that's francs. Second violation, 1 year suspension plus $1,000 francs. And third violation, lifetime suspension plus 5,000 francs. Bruh. Who has that money? That is crazy. But yet again, these things are put in place because if there's money to be won, sponsorships to be you know, given, you have to have these rules put in place, because if it doesn't, it tarnishes this form of cycling and cycling in general, especially when in accordance and regulated by the UCI, which is the highest cycling body. It's very important to have these rules. So incorrect rider height, weight. So providing inaccurate information about height or weight. Any information varying more than 5% from a real measure shall be considered incorrect. 5% is a lot. I think when I was reading, like 5% is about, like, on average, like 8 pounds, give or take. So that's a lot. That's a lot. That'd be pretty good on some climbs. But I guess it's hard because 5% for height, I don't think, like, you don't fluctuate height that much. Weight, I kind of get, but even that's a stretch. But it gets a little technical when things are done, you know, not at a one place, right? Like if you're riding from home and racing from home and it's a UCI sanction, it's kind of hard because you're not Comas here. But then again, I think they're being generous. So I think they have to get a little tighter on that. External trainer control, using any software or hardware device to control trainer resistance besides the provided by the platform. So they're saying if you have a third party, like you connect your computer, a separate computer to the trainer that can like make the resistance. So Zwift in the race is saying you should be doing 260 watts, but your trainer is connected to another device simultaneously. Like, this sounds like some hacker stuff, but you probably can figure it out if you hire the right person, or you are the person. Then in that case, don't do this. But then you have like another computer change the resistance. So the actual resistance is putting out 150 watts, but it's being registered as 260. Very deceptive. Use of bots and simulated riders. So using bots or simulated riders either in competition and or out of competition for any reason. This includes the use of simulant or any other Ant Plus or Bluetooth data simulation software or device, as well as any other means of controlling a rider in-game in any way except the use of a human rider. So they're basically saying, you know, you say you want to unlock a bike. I'm not going to get into details with that, but say you want to unlock a specific bike and you actually don't want to do the actual riding to unlock the bike. You could actually, hypothetically, like I said, have some type of software that connects to the bike that simulates that actual riding taking place, and you can unlock some specific stuff. Or you could just sit back, relax, and have your bike do all the work. and you would have your virtual character riding even though no one's on the bike. So that's important. And then unfair collusion, colluding or attempting to collude with another rider who is knowingly cheating or ineligible to race to gain an unfair advantage. Unfair advantage through collusion may include but not limited to actively and knowingly cooperating with a rider who is using inaccurate weight or miscalibrated power source. Teams entering ineligible riders in races to aid eligible riders, for instance, cooperating with non-resident teammates in a national championship race. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Basically meaning, don't try to work with other riders to screw over other riders to win, to get an unfair advantage. Pretty simple. And the same violation. So any of these violations, first violation, you know, you're not allowed to start. You get eliminated, disqualified, plus 200 francs. You do it again, you're in the bad books. 1 year suspension, and you get 1,000 francs. So they're giving you two warnings, okay? Like 1 strike, 2 strike, 3 strike, lifetime ban, $5,000, boom, you're out, okay? Pretty simple. But this is for these subset of rules. Now, it gets a little bit even stricter here. So lying or misleading race officials, use of another rider's account for racing, common sense stuff, okay? If you're doing this stuff, you should know it. You should have a team that knows these rules inside and out, okay? Fabrication or modification of data submitted to the performance verification entry, miscalibration, data modification, tampering with equipment, meaning don't hack your equipment. Like I said, you know, you're opening up a screwdriver, you got a hacker, he's gonna help you hack the system. Don't do it, okay? First violation, 1 year suspension, okay? $1,000 francs, you're done. Second violation, you're never riding on a trainer in a race competition, life suspension, and $5,000 francs. So mechanical or electrical fraud, using any mechanical or electrical device that provides unfair advantage. So basically anything that makes you, you know, a superhuman basically, okay? Don't do it. Hacking, game modification, meaning don't modify the data that's being put out. Pretty straightforward. $1,000 franc for 1 year suspension, first violation, second violation, lifetime suspension, $5,000 francs, you're gone, okay? So basically what we've learned, okay, I'll summarize it really quick, okay? Don't do anything that you wouldn't be allowed on the road, and you know, as soon as you think, wait, am I allowed to do this? The answer is probably no, okay? So if you guys want to look at the document, I'll leave it down below. You guys can give a look. The reason why I found it so interesting to see this was I started riding Zwift in 2016, even though it was out 2014, 2015. It's just cool to see over 4 years how it's progressed from just a training tool that's made the winters, for me, especially in Canada, pass a lot easier, to the point now where it's actually sanctioned by UCI. They're gonna have the first ever world championships. So it's cool to see how, you know, they're gonna take modern, you know, road regulations from the UCI regulations for, you know, normal events now being applied to modern electronic esports. So it's very interesting timing to have the document in front of you and you read through it to see, you know, just obviously there's going to be things they will add over time like they did with the original document that we use for road riding outdoors. But it's just very interesting to see from conception to now it being almost implemented in late 2020. It's just very cool. So we're gonna actually go into the next portion of the video, which is just a little bit more information that we know right now for the 2020 UCI World Championships that is gonna take place on Zwift. And let's get right into that. So like I said at the beginning, this is insane for esports news for cycling. And the UCI Cycling Esports World Championship is to be held in 2020 on Zwift's platform, which is groundbreaking. It's a new era of cycling. One of the biggest things is that, you know, for a while now, we've had the Richmond UCI course, we've had the Innisbrook course, and we have the Yorkshire course. And these courses are very fun, and they're usually the ending loop where the World Championships take place, where they ride outside of the main core, and then they finish the remaining laps on these circuits. And a lot of people have ridden it. I've ridden it myself. I've really enjoyed it because, you know, from seeing it and riding it to then actually seeing it on TV or vice versa, it's just cool saying like, damn, even though I live in Canada, I can actually somewhat experience what it's like for the pros to ride there for the World Championship. So I think it's very good. Now, the biggest thing I like to stress is that, you know, having pro teams on Zwift is a lot cheaper than you know, conventional racing, because with conventional racing you need team supports car, you need all this infrastructure, you need closed roads, permits, police officers, ambulance, police, for crowd control, like so much barriers, all this stuff, stage, all that stuff, where this is a lot more financially viable. As a spectator, I would say somewhat more enjoyable, as long as you are a rider or someone that likes cycling or, you know, trains on a trainer. And it's just something that makes sense going forward. Not to say that we won't have real life events, but it's just something that's supplementary now, right? So very interesting. Don't forget that this 2020 UCI World Championships that's taking place on Zwift, the esports, is going to be held in Switzerland in real life. So they're going to make probably a 20-kilometer loop of the Switzerland finishing circuit lap in Zwift, and that's what the pros are probably going to be, the esports pros are probably going to be racing on in 2020 later on this year. So my thought as a Zwifter is this is great. I'm really looking forward to it. It's still in its infancy, so it's only going to get better, and I think they're off to a really good start. Zwift has a big push. Then again, I look at their business model that they're really reinvesting back into you know, the racing scene, so good for them. I'm happy that they're actually putting the money back in towards the platform, and it's only going to grow that way. So I guess esports is officially here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It is a dawn of a new era in pro cycling, and I'm really looking forward to the future. And this is only the beginning. This is the first ever esports cycling UCI World Championships. I'm going to be watching it. I hope you guys are watching it. If you guys did enjoy the video, leave a like, drop a comment what you guys want to see next. But until then, keep pedaling.